Hello, I'm Pablo Rocco, and you're listening to Reprint, brought to you by the Temple News, your in-depth look into the stories you need to know about. This week, I speak to news editors Evelyn Blower and Nurbanu Sahin about the upcoming election and what's at stake in Pennsylvania. Then I speak to features editor Mike Nonamaker about a new beer that is inspired by Temple's colors, cherry and white. The election is in 2 weeks? 3 weeks? Something like that.
Yeah.
You guys, for this print edition, did a really extensive voter guide. Probably the best I've seen, honestly. Like that's an honest comment. How was that? Like, how long was that process? What was it like getting all the information, all of it?
I'll give it over to Ellen in a sec, but it was very stressful. I think the main thing for me, I covered Senate and the abortion side by side. Abortion side by side was online, but the main thing was only third party candidates would get back to you. I mean, we pretty much figured that, but we thought we'd at least get like spokespeople or like campaign managers and stuff to talk to us. So that was the difficult part. Or finding, like the correct information to back it up. Everyone says different things.
Right.
Ballotpedia got a lot of clicks this week because of us. I think we funded Ballotpedia's monthly revenue this month. It was great. We had a lot of help, thankfully. I know like news did a big chunk of it, but we also had features editors, opinion editors writing stuff for us. We even had senior staff. Like it was very difficult, but I think we accomplished like a pretty great amount.
I think a lot of the work was I think we all want to like talk about the election and everything like that. And we care a lot about like the issues. So we had to write the two side-by-sides which are in online about abortion and immigration. Immigration was how the two presidential candidates feel, and abortion was on the two Senate candidates. And then all of the races: treasurer, auditor general, attorney general, the House race, which there's two districts that Temple is in. So, but one was uncontested. So then we didn't write about that. And then there was, the president and everything like that. So I think, and then I had to write about all of them for who's on the ballot, which 7 pages long and just a whole lot of information and links and everything. And I went insane a little bit, but it's what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do sometimes. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You guys touched on it a little bit, but what are some of the different sections in the voter guide itself?
So we wanted to make sure that students knew how to vote, where to vote, who they're voting for, and what it actually matters to vote for, like, each presidential candidate. What's their stances on stuff. So in the presidential race preview, we made sure to talk about military spending, the economy, reproductive rights, the most important things to a lot of these students. The same thing with, the House race and everything. You should know as much as you can about each and every single candidate. That's why we wrote in depth for something that people don't really think about, like the treasurer position. No one really knows what the treasurer does. Yeah. But we should still know about, who you're voting for when you're filling in that ballot. What are you standing for them? Like, what's their stance? Why is that important? So I think, we covered the auditor general, which is really cool because that's where we have Malcolm Kenyatta. He's the Temple alum. He's been really prominent in local politics, local Philadelphia politics. We had the House race for District 2, which is between Brendan Boyle, who's the incumbent, but then also Aaron Bashir's come back. He's from 2022 as well. He was in the 2022 election. He's a Temple graduate as well. I think we just try to cover as much as all of the bases, every single one of them. And I think we did a good job. I think.
We'll see.
You did a great job. You did a great job.
See.
I mean, I wish I had one. I voted this weekend, Maryland ballot. My parents brought it up. So I didn't have a great resource like this, which you should definitely check out. And I don't know, maybe people get mad at me, but I left some sections empty for like.
Maryland ballot was pretty, because
It was light.
It was very light. It was only Senate and House.
Senate, House, and then you had some
ballot
judges,
measures.
Ballot measures, which I voted for.
Yes.
I don't know. Are you are you voting in Maryland? Or?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm in Montgomery County. So we had some.
I'm Wycomico. So
Okay. So
Eastern Shore.
we had some judges on there too.
I think
And Board
not
of
all for us.
Education. So
That's always on there. I think. It's
Yeah.
always a hot topic.
So I left those empty. Oops. Sorry. if
So
you
that
get
was
mad at me.
mainly the goal. We didn't want anybody like Googling because
Right.
that, you know, when you get to, I mean, we've done it. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like,
Yeah.
my first election, I definitely was for sure was Googling who the hell these people are. But,
Right.
yeah, no, our goal was just to make sure like people were informed before they got to the voting station or before they filled out their mail-in ballot. Like, who are you voting for? Because sometimes you
Sure.
pick the most attractive name, and that might not be the most attractive person. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, what are some, obviously everybody, the whole rage is the presidential election. What are the other races Temple students should be looking at that are extremely important?
I mean, the one I can speak for sure is Senate.
Mhm.
I mean, yes, it's Pennsylvania and Hall, but a lot of these candidates come to Philadelphia. Bob Casey's always having events
Yeah.
in Philadelphia. Dave McCormick is always talking to students in Philadelphia. The things they handle are important. You know, they have the right to be able to go to Congress and talk about student loans or reproductive rights
Right.
or, you know, the economy, because that is going to affect us. We are the next generation to
Mhm.
go into the workforce. So I think Senate, House also, especially just because they represent the district that Temple's in, they can control funding.
Yeah.
They control how much money Temple gets. They control how much Temple can charge tuition. So those, I think, are the two important ones aside from the presidential race. I know like we covered auditor and attorney general and stuff, but that's more attorney general too, because of course lately we've had, you know, the protests going on and stuff like that. You
Yeah.
know, that is a huge part. Auditor and treasurer and other things, that's mainly for the state, but it's still good to know about them because there could be a point in your life where that does affect you and you want to vote correctly.
Yeah.
But I think the main ones would be Senate, House, Attorney General, obviously presidential, because that's everybody. That's
Yeah.
not just Temple. That's everybody. But I
Yeah.
think that's what the main important ones could be.
And how tight are those races?
We're a battleground state. We're in a battleground state. I would say very tight. I think McCormick and Casey, I think I don't want to get this wrong, but I did see a percentage where it was at, you know, in the 50s to 49s, like very close. They are getting close. I think McCormick, you know, did run again previously in 2022 against Dr. Oz. Like, this is not his first time running, so he's definitely gotten some ground there. Casey's been the incumbent since 2007 or 2009, so it's a really close race. And Pennsylvania as a battleground, even for the presidential debate, it's very close, I think.
And then, you know, to talk about the other important one, the U.S. House race. So I wrote that piece. Brendan Boyle won in the last election by over 50 percentage points. I think it was about 75 and then 22. And then I think, doing the math. So I think that race is going to be kind of decided also. Fun fact, District 2, which encompasses everything west of Broad Street, is the 64th most Democratic district nationally.
Wow.
So we are really, like, you know, Center City and a lot of West Philly, like, we are very Democratic. So we're always going to lean Democratic. That's not really a close race.
Right.
Which, you know, you see a Temple alum, you kind of want to be like, okay, great. But, you know, a lot of people are Democratic voters. You're in a city, you're in Philadelphia and everything like that. You're going to go Democratic. So, yeah.
For sure.
Not going to be a close race, sadly. But, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, deadline to register to vote in Pennsylvania has passed already.
Yeah,
yesterday. Yeah. By the release, it'll be 2 days ago, but whatever. How can people vote? You know, tips and tricks for voting in person around Temple, and what are some of the deadlines for requesting the mail-in ballot and when you need to get that in, stuff like that.
So I know our other assistant editor, Samantha, she really worked hard on the how to vote in person and how to vote by mail and everything like that. Off the top of my head, I think for mail-in, it's October 29th.
Yeah, I think it's October 29th for a lot of states.
Yeah. I can keep it. And then for, you know, voting in person and everything like that, We have a really good graphic on our
Yeah.
website where you can look at and see pinpoint. There's the high school that's over by 17th and Norris.
Yep.
There's there's some other locations like around campus, off campus, that students who are registered in the area,
Mhm.
if they registered with their off campus address, if they register at the dorm, because they can register at their dorm, obviously deadline passed. But yeah, a lot of those locations are available via our website, via a Google search, anything like that. Use our website. But I think just like some tips and tricks is just to stay informed and make sure you know your rights as a voter. Make sure you know your rights as, chances are if you go to Temple, you can vote, and everything like that. Hopefully you're of age. And, it's a really important election. So I'm like, get out and vote.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
I'm sure we're at a point where no one can really ignore it. We have Temple Votes. We have so many people coming up to you and asking, "Are you registered to vote in Pennsylvania?" Like, there's no way that people don't know how to. And our voter guide is just like a little bit more in that push. We have locations. We basically tell you how to vote.
Yeah.
And who to vote, depending on what section, what party. Well, depending on the party, you can easily find the candidate and read. Like, we wrote about all the candidates, third party especially. We have a bunch of third party candidates written about. So yeah, I think everything's online and in print.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, going to policy, obviously it's going to be easier to speak on the differences, but I'm interested to know, did you find anything between Trump and Kamala's policies which we could find some common ground here between the two candidates?
Yeah, I was going to say for Senate, but
Or even for Senate races, yeah.
What's really interesting in discovering, we wrote two exclusive online articles about, again, immigration side by side, abortion side by side. Immigration side by side, looking at the two candidates' policies, very similar on border security and everything like that. Kamala Harris does want to build, don't quote me on it, does want to continue to build a wall at the southern border. A lot of the times, Democrats will criticize Kamala Harris. Republicans will criticize Kamala Harris. Yeah. Republicans will criticize Donald Trump sometimes because he'll flip-flop between things sometimes. But, Kamala Harris has more of a history in going anti-immigration as her work as San Francisco District Attorney, her work as California Attorney General. She did a lot of work that could be seen by some activists as, anti-immigration and everything like that. So in terms of differences, there's not a whole lot of differences on that front. But yeah, and then you did abortion with the Senate.
What I noticed, I think abortion was the one that threw me for a big loop. What I've noticed, like, with both parties is that it's not the fact that they differ on on the question, they differ on their approach.
Okay.
It's very confusing, but the thing I've noticed, not with abortion specifically, but with the Senate race, both McCormick and Casey don't like inflation. Right. Both of them have been very vocal about it. Bob Casey always talks about shrinkflation, greedflation. McCormick always talks about the high prices because of like post-COVID. They both hate it. They can probably collaborate on it. If I'm so honest, it's very vocal about it. And abortion, like, they've both changed their opinions a few times. McCormick previously was anti-abortion, but now he says, there's exceptions in 3 cases. Casey's father was the defendant in the Planned Parenthood case in 1992. Like, they both come from like a history of changing their opinions. So there's definitely like very similar points, but I think the way they approach the topics is what makes them, belong to either party.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So then what are like some of the most tumultuous issues in the state then, where both sides kind of are really far apart from each other?
Definitely abortion.
Right.
Only 10 states right now have expanded abortion access, including Maryland and other states. Pennsylvania is at a point right now where when Roe v. Wade was overturned, it didn't trigger any laws, but there's no expanded laws to protect it. That's everyone's biggest concern. I know that was a big concern with the governor race. Josh Shapiro has made efforts to protect abortion, but there's nothing currently in place federally or like
Right.
just for the state in general. So that's a big topic. Oddly, which we think is really funny, immigration is a big topic in Pennsylvania, even though we're nowhere near the southern border. The southern border. Wow, border is nowhere near us. And inflation, I think, is another one of those topics. But I think another one that Evelyn likes to bring up, which is still very important, is gun control. Gun control still.
I don't really have. We didn't.
That's, I think, the main big ones: the economy, abortion, reproductive rights, gun control, and immigration tends to be everyone's big focus.
For sure, yeah. I mean, is there anything that maybe didn't make it to the voter guide that you think would be of value for people to know?
Gun control.
Gun control?
I think we've gotten to a point with gun control where we know it's a problem, but we know it's probably never, unfortunately, going to get addressed.
Right.
So no one bothers to talk about it, even though countless school shootings happen, and that's just what it is. But yeah, gun control, I wish we could have, but it's never come up with candidates to the point
It's
where
interesting.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing. You think
Yeah.
it would come up more, but
Always just going to be a hot button.
it's just the hot button issue. It's that, buzzword thing that you bring up just to like get a reaction.
Well, yeah, I mean, now that I think about it too, I feel like there's, between the presidential candidates specifically,
Mm-hmm.
there's been kind of PR moves. I mean, obviously we know the Republicans are in support of, gun rights and the Second Amendment. But looking at Kamala and
Yeah.
Walt, sure, I got a Glock, and then
The
Walt's out
famous-
there hunting with the shotgun.
Yeah.
There've been big moves on their side for
There's
that.
been a Democratic thing to claim back guns.
Yeah.
There's no more of that you're soft on crime kind of
Mm-hmm.
approach, I think. Guns are now like, you can own a gun, you just want, restrictions on it. That's been like the PR move, I think, for the Democrats. But funny enough, there's been no mention of gun control.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's been a big thing that we've noticed.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've laid out everything out for you. Get out there and vote by or on November 5th. Yeah, please encourage the folks to vote.
Everyone, please vote.
Please go check out our voter guide. Please, 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 please.
There is a candidate for everybody, even if you don't want to vote for the two traditional parties. There is a candidate for everybody.
Forward Party, Libertarian Party, American
Constitutions,
Solidarity
Green Party.
We've got everything.
We have all the parties.
Now I speak to assistant features editor Mike Nonamaker about a new beer inspired by Temple's colors, cherry and white. I think this is a very fitting piece to pair up with the election piece because you may need a couple of these going through this election cycle. You wrote about new Temple-themed beer that's being made. What were the two breweries that were partnering up for this?
So it was Second Sin Brewing in Bristol
Okay.
and Humble Parlor in Fishtown.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about their origin stories.
Yeah, so Mike Boreski was the first guy I spoke with. Sam, one of his sources, reached out to us like,
Mhm.
yeah, you got to do a story on this. So I reached out to Mike Boreski, who is with like two of his friends from middle school, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool, owns the Second Sin Brewing Company. And they actually did a Penn State beer like last May. Because his buddies who own it with him, they're Penn State alum, and he was like, yeah, I want to do the same thing. So he was like, Humble Parlor, they got Alex and Maria, a married couple, and they're both Temple alums. So he was like, yeah, let's do that. Let's get that done.
For sure,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, tell me a little bit, about what the beer is, like the flavor profile of it and all that.
Yeah. So I didn't even know if I would like it because I'm just not a huge beer guy.
Right. Really?
At
Okay.
least, I mean, I'm simple, man. I go for like, whatever's cheapest. I'd
For
rather
sure.
Yingling
Yeah,
or like
same.
Coors Banquet or whatever. But like the sours and the IPA is not so much my style. But it was good, man. Great cherry flavor. It was cherry and white chocolate.
Mhm.
And the white chocolate, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like that. But it was like on the finish. You
For
know what
sure.
I mean? It was like kind of.
I've had bad experiences with like chocolate beers. I think it's called
Yeah.
Sweet Baby Jesus
oh, I
out
have,
of like
yes.
Baltimore. They also
Yeah.
have like a peanut butter one. Just wasn't
Ooh.
for me. Yeah.
Peanut butter, I'd never go for. Yeah. Yeah. The chocolate, there's so many nowadays. You're like, I
Right.
don't know if that would work. But it was so subtle. It was like the aftertaste. You
Uh-huh.
got that white chocolate. It was good, man.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what percentage is it?
It was like 6.5. So it's
Okay.
nothing crazy.
Right.
It's not like one of those 9%ers. You're like, oh my God.
100%.
But I liked it a lot more than I thought it would. We all kind of liked it. Yeah.
And I think the video for that will be coming out shortly
Yeah.
of everybody tracing it. I mean, I was gonna go and then I had something pop up. very jealous. But you mentioned the story. I think it was from not the Sins Brewery, but the other one.
Mm-hmm.
They mentioned in the interview that Temple kind of cultivated their love for beer. Like, how did that come about? Like, how does those two interact?
Yeah, so they really put an emphasis on how Temple kind of has that entrepreneurial spirit, and they kind of just fed off that. And their time at Temple led to them, being interested in opening their own business.
For sure.
And like Mike and Alex at Humble Parlor, they're still working their 9 to 5s.
Yeah.
Like Alex at Humble Parlor, he still has an accounting business. He's like a CPA by trade, and he was like, not his passion, but he's still making time for his passion,
right.
And brewing. So
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I can say, like, the breweries in Philadelphia, like, it has a good scene. Like, there's a really good scene for the breweries. So definitely awesome to see some Temple representation among them. I mean, yeah, just like going back to how they're working their 9 to 5s and then doing this on the side. They talked a little bit about their challenges. What were their challenges in doing that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, it's a big brewery scene.
Right.
So it's competitive, man. There's a lot of breweries, and they're both kind of smaller operations. One of the challenges is that they had to collaborate to kind of get this done. They needed to work together because they're smaller breweries. So it's hard, like, building a presence for yourself in a neighborhood or city that, they're all over the place. But they've been able to do that. You look at Untapped. I mentioned it in the article. Yeah. Untapped has them as like this as Second Sin as like the top 10 brewery in PA.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they're like 9.
Wow.
So they're definitely got a nice little following for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, is this a limited release, this Temple beer? Or?
Yeah, I made sure to ask him that. He was telling me he's kind of going to see how it plays out.
Right.
It's mostly like just a seasonal kind of vibe right now. But he was like, dude, if people are buying it and they're asking for it back, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I think they came out with just like 2 barrels. I don't know as much about the process, but he was like, the output wasn't too much. So they're working with what they got right now. But, if it sells, it sells. They're going to keep it going.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're over the age of 21 or 21, definitely make it out there.
Oh, yeah.
Grab some for yourself. And, yeah, make sure this is a regular thing because I'd love to try it. But, yeah, is there anything else you'd like to add on this story?
I mean, just big thanks to Mike Boreski. He hosted us over at Second Sin. Let us try out, some of the stuff they have there. They even had I think it's a hazy IPA, Pole Greaser.
Okay.
It was kind of made when it was like grease the poles,
I see. Yeah, I like
during when Phillies were doing well last year. And that was good, and I'm not an IPA guy. So,
Me
he was a great host, and he's got some great beer over there. So,
yeah.
And thanks to, Humble Parlor as well, Alex and Maria, for speaking with me. Whole process was really cool. Loved writing the story.
Thank you to our editors, Evelyn, Nurbanu, and Mike for joining me on this episode, and make sure to check out all their work on the Temple News website. I'm Paulo Rocco, podcast editor for the Temple News, and this is Reprint.